The massive Nexary warship emerged from hyperspace like a midnight sun, its obsidian surface absorbing Earth's reflected light rather than reflecting it. Commander Sarah Chen watched from the International Space Station's observation deck as 3 more ships materialized, their angular shapes defying conventional aerospace engineering principles. "Commander, they're broadcasting," Lieutenant James Kumar's voice crackled through her earpiece. "All frequencies, all languages." Sarah floated closer to the reinforced window, her heart racing despite years of crisis training. The Nexary had visited 27 worlds before Earth, according to their transmission. 27 civilizations that now served as productive members of their empire. None had lasted more than 3 days before surrendering. "Inhabitants of Sol 3, the message began, its artificial translation eerily smooth. "Your world has been selected for integration into the Nexary collective. Your atmospheric composition marks you as a developing civilization requiring guidance. Prepare for preliminary atmospheric adjustment to meet collective standards." Dr. Emily Rodriguez, the station's lead atmospheric scientist, burst into the observation deck, her tablet displaying rapidly changing atmospheric readings. "Commander, you need to see this. They're ships, they're deploying something into our upper atmosphere." Sarah watched as invisible waves rippled through Earth's thermosphere, visible only through the station's sophisticated instruments. The Nexary ships maintained their position, their obsidian hulls now emitting a subtle purple glow. "They're trying to alter our atmosphere," Emily explained, her fingers dancing across her tablet. "But there's something wrong. The chemical reaction isn't proceeding as they expected. Our oxygen levels are actually increasing instead of decreasing." The first sign that something was amiss came from the smallest Nexary vessel. Its perfect black surface began to develop microscopic imperfections, visible only through the station's powerful telescopes. Within minutes, the imperfections spread like cracks in thin ice. "Commander," James called out again, his voice tight with controlled excitement. "Their communications just switched to internal channels. They're panicking." Sarah watched as the smallest ship suddenly retreated, pulling back from Earth's upper atmosphere as if burned. The other ships held their positions, but their purple glow intensified, suggesting increased power to their defensive systems. Emily's tablet chimed with new data. "The oxygen reaction, it's creating a cascade effect. Our atmosphere isn't just refusing to change, it's actively hostile to their technology. The oxygen molecules are binding with their whole material in an unexpected way." Through the observation window, Sarah witnessed the second ship develop the same spreading imperfections. The Nexary vessels began to withdraw, their retreat lacking the mathematical precision of their arrival. As they pulled back, their transmission cut through Earth's communications once more. "Anomaly detected. Atmospheric composition presents unprecedented hazard. Collective protocols require." The message ended abruptly as the ships accelerated away from Earth, leaving behind traces of their damaged hull material floating in the upper atmosphere. In the following hours, as Earth's governments scrambled to understand what had happened, Emily made a discovery that would change humanity's position in the galaxy forever. The samples of Nexary hull material collected by the station's external robots revealed something extraordinary. Their entire technology is based on an oxygen-free environment, she explained to the hastily assembled Emergency Council via video link. They've eliminated oxygen from their engineering because it's highly reactive. Their ships, their weapons, even their life support systems, they're all designed to operate in oxygen-free conditions. Earth's atmosphere isn't just incompatible with their technology, it's lethal to it. Sarah looked out at Earth below, its atmosphere now visible to her in a new light. What the Nexary saw as a sign of primitive development, an oxygen-rich atmosphere, was actually humanity's greatest defense. The very air they breathed, the result of billions of years of biological evolution, had turned out to be more effective than any weapon they could have designed. "They'll be back," Sarah said quietly, watching the last traces of the Nexary ships disappear from their sensors. "They'll try to find a way around this. Emily nodded, already typing rapidly on her tablet. Yes, but now we know their weakness. And we can prepare. As emergency meetings convened across the globe, humanity began to understand their unique advantage. The Nexary's attempt to elevate Earth's atmosphere to their standards had revealed their fundamental vulnerability. In trying to remake Earth in their image, they had exposed the flaw in their own perfection. Sarah Chen composed her report to Earth's Unified Defense Council with a small smile. Sometimes, survival didn't depend on matching an enemy's strength, but on turning their assumptions of superiority against them. The Nexary would indeed return, but Earth would be ready. Their atmosphere, once dismissed as primitive, would become their shield and, if necessary, their sword. 3 months after the Nexary retreat, the Global Atmospheric Defense Initiative, GADI, transformed the Atacama Desert into humanity's largest scientific experiment. Dr. Emily Rodriguez stood before a massive array of atmospheric processors, their metallic surfaces reflecting the harsh Chilean sun. The machines, streamlined columns reaching toward the sky, represented humanity's best chance at survival. Oxygen concentration at 150% of normal atmospheric levels, reported Dr. Kai Zhang, his voice steady despite the historic nature of their work. Containment field is holding. Emily watched the holographic display as their experimental chamber simulated the conditions they'd need to repel the next Nexary invasion. The sample of alien hull material they'd recovered from low orbit was suspended in the center of the chamber, already showing signs of deterioration under the concentrated oxygen exposure. General Maria Santos, the Brazilian Air Force commander overseeing the project, stepped forward. "How long until we can weaponize this?" "We already have," Emily replied, gesturing to the smaller prototype devices lined up behind the main array. These portable atmospheric concentrators can create localized areas of heightened oxygen density. We're calling them oxygen bombs, though they don't actually explode. They just rapidly release highly concentrated oxygen into a targeted area. The demonstration chamber suddenly flashed red as the Nexary hull sample began to disintegrate, its molecular structure breaking down under the oxygen assault. The process was even faster than their models had predicted. "The real challenge," Kai added, adjusting his calculations, "isn't creating the weapons. It's delivery. We need to find a way to deploy these concentrators in space, preferably before the Nexary enter our atmosphere." Maria nodded, her military training already calculating trajectories and deployment strategies. "What about our satellites? Could we modify them to carry these devices?" Emily's tablet chimed with an incoming priority message. Her face paled as she read it. "We may need to accelerate our timeline. Deep space arrays have detected Nexary signatures at the edge of our solar system. They're back, and this time they're not alone." The next 48 hours transformed the Atacama facility into a global command center. Representatives from every space-capable nation converged on the desert base, bringing with them their best technologies and brightest minds. Dr. James Kumar, now stationed permanently at the expanded International Space Station, coordinated the orbital defense preparations. "We're modifying communication satellites to carry the oxygen concentrators," his hologram reported to the assembled leaders. "But we need more time." "Time is something we don't have," Maria responded, reviewing the latest intelligence. "The Nexary fleet is larger than before, and they're moving more cautiously. They've learned from their first attempt." Emily studied the orbital calculations, an idea forming. "What if we don't wait for them to reach Earth? What if we take the fight to them?" The room fell silent as she pulled up the schematics for a modified rocket design. "We've been thinking defensively, waiting to use our atmosphere as a shield. But what if we use it as a spear instead?" Kai caught on immediately, his fingers flying across his console. "A concentrated payload of our atmosphere, delivered via high-speed missile. We could disrupt their formations before they even get close enough to deploy their own atmospheric alterations." "It's risky," Maria cautioned, though her eyes showed interest. "We'd be revealing our strategy before they enter our atmosphere." If it fails. If it fails, we still have the orbital defense network, Emily finished. But if it works, we show them that humanity isn't just defending our world. We're willing to take the fight to them. The next 12 hours saw the fastest international cooperation in human history. Russian heavy-lift rockets were modified with Chinese guidance systems and American oxygen payload technology. Indian space tracking stations coordinated with European launch facilities. The world held its breath as humanity prepared to launch its first interplanetary counterattack. Emily stood in the control room, watching as the first wave of modified rockets prepared for launch. The Nexary fleet had passed Mars's orbit, their obsidian ships now visible through Earth's most powerful telescopes. They moved in perfect formation, their confidence evident in every calculated maneuver. They still think they're superior, Maria observed, standing beside her. They believe their technology, their society, their very existence is more advanced than ours because they've moved beyond needing oxygen. Emily smiled grimly as the countdown began. Then let's show them why evolution chose oxygen in the first place. Sometimes the old ways are the best ways. As the rockets ignited, carrying humanity's atmospheric weapons toward the approaching fleet, Emily thought about the irony of their defense. The Nexary had come to elevate Earth's primitive atmosphere, never considering that its very primitiveness might be its greatest strength. Now they would learn that underestimating humanity, and the very air they breathed, was a mistake they wouldn't make twice. The first oxygen payload rocket struck the Nexary fleet just beyond lunar orbit. From Earth's most powerful telescopes, the impact looked like a miniature supernova, a brilliant flash of light as Earth's concentrated atmosphere met the aliens' oxygen-free technology. Direct hit on their forward vessel, Kai announced, his voice steady despite the tension in the gaudy control room. Atmospheric dispersal pattern exactly as predicted. Emily watched through the enhanced feed as the oxygen cloud expanded, catching two more Nexary ships in its radius. Their obsidian surfaces began to deteriorate immediately, the oxygen molecules attacking their hull material at the molecular level. They're breaking formation, Maria reported, tracking the enemy fleet's movements. Splitting into smaller groups, trying to minimize exposure. But the Nexary's evasive maneuvers played directly into humanity's strategy. The second wave of rockets launched from sites across Earth, their trajectories calculated to take advantage of the fleet's scattered formation. Each rocket carried an even more concentrated oxygen payload, refined through endless simulations in the Atacama facility. The alien fleet's response came swiftly. Energy beams lanced out, destroying several rockets before they could reach their targets. But even these defensive measures worked against them. The destroyed rockets released their oxygen payloads early, creating a chaotic web of oxygen-rich space that the Nexary ships had to navigate. They're adapting, James reported from the ISS, his hologram flickering with static. Their energy weapons are attempting to break down the oxygen molecules before impact. But they can't shoot everywhere at once. Emily's tablet displayed rapidly changing chemical analyses. Look at their weapon signatures, she pointed out. Every time they fire, they create a momentary gap in their defensive shields. They can't maintain full protection and attack simultaneously. Maria immediately grasped the tactical advantage. All launch sites, coordinate your attacks with their defensive fire. Time the rocket trajectories to exploit those gaps. The space between Earth and Moon became a dangerous dance of rockets, energy beams, and expanding clouds of weaponized atmosphere. The Nexary's perfect formations and calculated attacks contrasted sharply with humanity's more adaptable, opportunistic strategy. A massive explosion lit up the lunar sky as one of the largest Nexary ships suffered a direct hit. Its deteriorating hull created a chain reaction, releasing unknown alien technologies into the oxygen-rich environment. The resulting chemical reaction created a spectacular aurora-like effect visible from Earth's surface. Their flagship is changing position, Kai noted, studying the tactical display. They're establishing communication. The message that came through carried none of the smooth confidence of their first contact. Cease atmospheric deployment immediately. This violation of standard combat protocols cannot be permitted. Emily couldn't help but smile at their choice of words. They still don't understand. They think we're breaking rules, when we're simply using what we have. Send them our response, Maria commanded, her expression firm. The message was simple: this is our atmosphere. Either adapt to it or leave. The Nexari fleet's reaction was immediate and violent. Their remaining ships launched a full-scale assault, energy weapons firing continuously at both the incoming rockets and Earth itself. But each energy burst created more gaps in their defenses, more opportunities for humanity's oxygen weapons to find their marks. Final wave of rockets ready for launch, James reported. These carry the experimental warheads. Emily held her breath as the last wave of humanity's atmospheric weapons soared upward. These rockets contained something special, a mixture of oxygen and other atmospheric gases that her team had discovered could create a cascading reaction in the Nexari's hull material. The alien fleet, already damaged and scattered, couldn't stop them all. The experimental warheads detonated in a carefully planned pattern, creating a vast web of hypercharged atmosphere. The effect was immediate and devastating. Where the normal oxygen weapons had caused gradual deterioration, these new weapons triggered almost instant molecular breakdown. Multiple ships experiencing critical hull failure, Kai announced, his voice rising with excitement. Their defensive systems are completely overwhelmed. The Nexari flagship, its once perfect surface now scarred and pitted, began a rapid retreat. Other surviving ships followed, their withdrawal as chaotic as their arrival had been ordered. They left behind a graveyard of derelict vessels, each one testament to the power of humanity's atmospheric defense. As celebrations erupted across the globe, Emily stood quietly at her station, studying the data from their victory. They'll try again, she said softly. They'll develop new technologies, new defenses. Maria nodded, but her expression was confident. And we'll be ready. We've proven that humanity's greatest strength isn't in mimicking their technology, but in using what we already have. The stars above the Atacama Desert seemed brighter that night, as if celebrating humanity's triumph. Earth's atmosphere, once seen as a sign of a primitive world, had become their greatest weapon. And in proving the power of their primitive defense, humanity had taken its first steps toward becoming a true spacefaring civilization, not by abandoning their origins, but by embracing them. 6 months after humanity's first victory, the Nexari returned with what they believed was the solution to Earth's atmospheric defense. Their new fleet arrived in waves, their ships now encased in shimmering energy fields that they claimed could neutralize any oxygen attack. From her new position aboard the hastily constructed atmospheric defense station, Emily watched the approaching armada with a mixture of concern and curiosity. Those fields aren't just defensive shields, she observed, studying the readings from the station's advanced sensors. They're actively converting oxygen molecules into inert gases. Confirmed, James reported from his console. They've found a way to break down our atmospheric weapons before they can reach the ship's hulls. Standard oxygen payloads are showing zero effect. General Santos's hologram flickered in the station's command center. Then it's time for Plan Theta. Dr. Rodriguez, are you certain about this? Emily nodded, her hand hovering over the activation sequence. During the 6-month reprieve, humanity hadn't been idle. While the Nexari developed defenses against their oxygen weapons, Earth scientists had been working on something far more ambitious. Launch the seed platforms, she commanded. Across Earth's orbit, hundreds of small satellites activated simultaneously. Each one carried a revolutionary piece of technology, a miniaturized version of Earth's natural oxygen cycle, complete with modified algae that could survive in space. Biological warfare, the Nexari commander's transmission carried a note of disbelief. You would resort to such primitive methods? Not warfare, Emily responded, watching as the seed platforms released their payload of engineered algae into space. Evolution. The Nexary energy fields were designed to break down concentrated oxygen attacks, but they weren't prepared for billions of microscopic organisms actively producing oxygen as part of their natural life cycle. The algae, specially engineered to thrive in the vacuum of space, began to create a living barrier between Earth and the alien fleet. Their field generators are showing signs of strain, Kai reported from the surface. They can't convert oxygen fast enough to counter the continuous production. The space around Earth's orbit began to change as the algae multiplied exponentially, creating patches of oxygen-rich space that the Nexary ships couldn't easily neutralize. Their perfect formation began to waver as ships were forced to navigate around these growing organic hazards. You think this primitive solution will stop us? The Nexary commander's voice had lost its artificial smoothness. We've conquered worlds far more advanced than yours. Emily's response was interrupted by a sudden alert. The Nexary flagship had launched what appeared to be massive energy projectors, devices capable of creating vast areas of absolute vacuum. The algae in their path died instantly, creating safe corridors for their ships to approach Earth. They're adapting faster than we anticipated, Maria's hologram warned. The biological defense won't hold them back for long. It doesn't need to, Emily replied, initiating the second phase of humanity's defense. The algae was just to make them reveal their new technology. As the Nexary fleet advanced through their artificially created vacuum corridors, Earth's orbital defense platforms came to life. But instead of launching more oxygen weapons, they released clouds of seemingly inert gas. What is this? The Nexary commander demanded. Your atmosphere is all ready. The transmission cut off as the inert gas clouds made contact with their energy fields. The reaction was immediate and catastrophic. The gas, designed to remain stable until it encountered the specific frequency of the Nexary's oxygen-neutralizing fields, underwent an instant transformation. The vacuum corridors, James exclaimed, they're collapsing. Emily watched as the Nexary's own defensive technology became their undoing. The energy fields that protected them from oxygen began to fluctuate wildly as they tried to process both the engineered gas and the naturally occurring oxygen from the surviving algae. The perfect vacuum they had created began to fill with a chaotic mixture of gases that their ship systems couldn't compensate for fast enough. Their technology requires absolute control, Emily explained as the Nexary fleet fell into disarray. But life, real life, thrives on chaos and adaptation. They can defend against one threat or another, but not against an environment that's constantly changing. The battle for Earth's orbital space became a desperate race between the Nexary's technological solutions and humanity's ever-evolving defensive measures. For every vacuum corridor they created, Earth's platforms released new combinations of gases. For every adaptation their ships made, the engineered algae responded with its own biological changes. In the end, it wasn't a single weapon or strategy that broke the Nexary attack. It was the fundamental difference in how each civilization approached survival. The Nexary sought perfection through control, while humanity embraced adaptation through chaos. As the alien fleet began its second retreat in 6 months, Emily received a final transmission from the Nexary commander. How? How can you defend with such disorder? Because, Emily replied, watching the last ships flee from Earth's now thoroughly transformed orbital space, disorder is what kept us alive for billions of years. We never forgot that lesson. 1 year after the second Nexary retreat, Earth had changed in ways no one could have predicted. The orbital algae belt, now a permanent feature of Earth's space environment, shimmered with bioluminescent beauty during night hours, creating auroras visible from every continent. Emily stood at the viewport of the expanded atmospheric defense station, watching a civilian transport ship navigate through the carefully maintained corridors of their new orbital ecosystem. The vessel's hull, like all Earth ships now, incorporated elements learned from their battles, designed to work with the oxygen-rich environment rather than against it. The diplomatic corps just received another application for asylum, James announced, floating into the observation deck. Third one this month. Seems not everyone in the Nexary collective appreciates their pursuit of perfection. The station's main display activated, showing a sector map of known space. Green dots indicated worlds that had begun adopting Earth's atmospheric defense strategies, while red marked those still under Nexary control. The balance was shifting, slowly but steadily. Director Rodriguez, Maria's hologram appeared, her uniform now bearing the insignia of the United Earth Defense Force. The Council is ready for your presentation on Project Genesis. Emily gathered her data tablets, each containing pieces of humanity's most ambitious plan yet. The algae belt had been just the beginning. Project Genesis proposed transforming the very nature of space travel and colonization. The Nexary's fundamental mistake, Emily began her presentation to the gathered world leaders, wasn't just in underestimating our atmosphere. It was in believing that space had to be sterile, controlled, and perfect for civilization to advance. The main screen displayed images of their new spacecraft designs, vessels that incorporated living systems, that carried pieces of Earth's biosphere with them. We've proven that life doesn't need to be eliminated from technology to make progress. In fact, integrating biological systems makes our technology more resilient, more adaptable. Dr. Kai Zhang, now leading the Biological Engineering Division, added his findings. The orbital algae belt doesn't just provide defense. It's creating sustainable oxygen production for our space stations, natural radiation shielding, and even helping with debris cleanup. Life finds a way to solve problems we didn't even know we had. The council chamber erupted in discussion as Emily presented the next phase, terraforming proposals that would use modified versions of their defensive algae to begin transforming Mars's atmosphere. The same biological principles that had defended Earth could now help humanity expand into the solar system. We've received intelligence that the Nexary are experiencing internal conflicts, Maria reported. Many of their member worlds are questioning the cost of maintaining oxygen-free environments. Some are secretly experimenting with reintroducing atmospheric diversity. Emily wasn't surprised. The Nexary's pursuit of technological perfection had required enormous resources to maintain. Earth had shown the galaxy a different path, one that worked with natural processes rather than against them. They called us primitive, she addressed the council, because we still breathed oxygen, still relied on biological processes they had evolved beyond. But we proved that their evolution was actually devolution, a retreat from the very principles that make life resilient. The vote for Project Genesis was unanimous. Within hours, the first wave of Genesis ships began their journey to Mars, carrying with them the seeds of a new understanding of progress. Humanity would reach for the stars not by conquering nature, but by bringing it with them. Later that evening, as Earth's cities glowed beneath the shimmer of the algae belt, Emily received an unexpected transmission. A group of Nexary scientists, working in secret, requested collaboration on developing hybrid technologies that could bridge the gap between their civilization's approaches. Perhaps, the message concluded, true advancement lies not in eliminating the primitive, but in finding harmony between the old and the new. Emily composed her reply with a smile, remembering how far they'd come from those first terrifying moments of first contact. The Nexary had arrived believing they would elevate humanity beyond its primitive atmosphere. Instead, humanity had elevated the galaxy's understanding of what true advancement meant. As she looked out at the living barrier that now protected Earth, Emily reflected on the irony. In trying to perfect their civilization by eliminating the messiness of biological processes, the Nexary had actually limited themselves. Humanity's greatest weakness had proved to be its greatest strength, the ability to embrace chaos, adapt to change, and find power in the very elements of life itself. The air that humans breathed, once dismissed as a sign of their primitive nature, had become the foundation of a new age of space exploration. And as humanity reached for the stars, they carried with them not just their technology, but the very essence of life itself, proving that sometimes the most advanced civilizations are those that remember their roots.